Gentlemen, thank you so much for waiting. Here we are at Mindset Live, the Afterlife discussion. We're a minute or two late because we were getting our ducks in a row. We have a number of guests this evening that we're going to be talking about this amazing discussion, hopefully. I'm Gareth Davis. I'm in Los Angeles, California. I'm the host of the Mindset Podcast, and I'm here with some of the hosts and even creators of the Nocturnal Frequency radio show. First, let me introduce you to our first guest, Mr. Steve Genier. Hello, Steve.
How's it going, Gareth?
Great to have you on board, man. Glad to finally see you. Usually when we're on Nocturnal Frequency, we just hear the voice.
Just the sound wave.
Just the voice. But yeah, it's great to have you on the show, and we're going to have a great conversation. Let's bring in your other co-host of Nocturnal Frequency Radio, the one and only Mr. Alex Rondini. What's up, Alex?
Hey, how you doing?
Good to see you, man. Good to finally put a face to the voice.
Notice that Steve and I have the same barber, right?
Yes. We can just quick switch back to Steve, back to Alex. You got the same barber. Very good. A minute ago, we were on, and Alex had a very red, dark, evil-looking light in his room. Can you give us a little taste, Alex?
Please hang on.
There we go. Oh, very spooky. Very satanic, if I do say so myself.
Anton LaVey look.
It's Anton LaVey look.
That's exactly what I'm going for. You just got to grow the same stuff.
There you go, and you'll have it. We're also going to be bringing in Justin Villarreal. Let me see if I can get Justin on. We've had a challenge trying to get Justin on the show. But I'm going to try and bring him in live on the show right now. So this will either go fabulously well or be an absolute fuck up. Excuse the language. Well, let's
way to get demonetized.
let's see what we can do here and bring Justin in. Justin,
yeah.
Are you there? Earth to Justin, come in, please.
Can you see me?
I cannot. Oh, there he is.
There we go.
There's Justin.
There he is.
There
we
he
gotta
is.
change it up. I ended up just using the iPad instead.
All right, man.
It was working before, but I don't know, maybe because there's so much going on right now, I'm having an issue.
Get nice and close to the mic so we can hear your dulcet tones.
There we go. Hopefully that works out better there.
That's much better, man. Just get real close to the mic so we can hear you.
Well, that mic is just for show right now.
Oh, it's just for show.
Is it hooked up? It's not hooked up?
No, we're going through my iPad at the moment.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
That's like a paperweight right now.
All right.
Yep. Yep. I wanted to go better, but obviously.
Now, Justin, just to throw it, you have podcasted before, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So now that we got the whole team here, we got the whole gang on the show, we should really start getting into the topic. The topic is, of course, the afterlife. Where do we go when we die, if anywhere at all? Two schools of thoughts, right? It's either all or nothing. Your consciousness either moves on to another reality, another place, or it doesn't. And when you die, that's the end of that. Game over. Call it quits. Someone switched off the light switch, and that's that. So let's go to Justin first. Justin,
hello, everybody.
Where do we go when we die?
Well, I think it's many possibilities, mostly because of the idea of the multiverse. So, let's just say a personal hell, in a sense, could possibly exist because of that idea, or just by the power of belief, that possibility of not knowing is. The other realistic possibility is that we are just this collection of energy that just, in entropy, we just go back to zero, which whatever that means, in the sense of all of creation, all of elements, everything, whatever that means, we just go back to the universe, I guess. So I think we could look at it many ways, and I don't think it's just focused on particularly, I think all ideas of heavens and hells exist. I think that's a total possibility. And at the same time, we just go right back to a singular type of energy, whatever that is, into like the fabric of the universe.
Well, let's let's delve into maybe what our current preconceived notions are, the popular norms
Of course.
in regard to what happens when your heart stops beating and your brain goes dead and your body just becomes a slab of meat.
Hmm.
What happens? I mean, all of religions talk about going to a good place and a bad place, heaven
Yes.
or hell.
Yes.
So what do you think that could be, Steve?
We're dead.
We're dead. You're dead. You're dead. You're done.
Yeah, I popular belief. I've never been one for popular belief, if you will, and I like the way Justin sort of unfolded his sort of little knick-knack of how it might be.
It's the best I can.
It's perfect because I look at it as a frequency sort of energy sort of realm, if you will. When we look at the world around us, we are tuned into the physical world. Our bodies are a physical vessel, if you will.
Yeah.
But what do we need to have this body to fuel it is energy.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that
we need frequency, we need waves. All these things connect with each other in order for us to survive and thrive.
Are you talking like maybe like the old adage that energy cannot be destroyed? It could either it can only transform. Is that what you mean? That kind of thing?
Absolutely. I do believe that when we die, our energy that's housed within the vessel that we, and I don't want to say soul, if you will. People call it a soul, but whatever it is, the energy that we function with on a daily basis, it transitions, I believe, into the universe, if you will, if not the world, the Earth.
What about let's go to Alex. What's your take on it? Heaven, hell, life everlasting, or is that the end of it when you finally finish?
I'm kind of undecided, but I mean, as far as what we've been talking about, as far as energies are concerned, I know that they can either be created or eradicated, for lack of a better term. So something goes on. Whether that something is conscious, is our consciousness or not, is up for debate, obviously, and I'm not 100% sure of that either. But I don't believe in a physical hell or a physical heaven that the soul can go to when we pass on. I think it's just, if we do go on with our existence, and I think it's just the next step in our evolution.
Interesting. It's interesting. You mentioned evolution, and I think that a lot of religious people would be up in arms with the word evolution tied into that. But the concepts of heaven and hell, don't you think they're kind of in a kind of primitive way, a way to kind of control humanity?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I see Steve saying absolutely. So let's go to Steve first. What do you think, Steve? Is it heaven, and if you're a good boy and you obey the laws and you do what you should do in this life, you go to heaven, or if you're bad and you disobey, you go to heaven? What do you think?
That's exactly what it is. It's throw them a bone if they're good. That's exactly what it is. It's a form of control, like a domesticated control. It's a man-made control. And look at it, it's working today. It continues to work. Religious in all facets of life. And religion, obviously, when it comes to, well, we'll say organized religion, if you will. But I mean, when it comes to heaven and hell, I mean, people will like to think that, look, if you're good and you die, you will go to heaven. If you're bad, you go to hell. And basically, it's a foreshadowing to look at, be good or else you'll be punished.
So in your opinion, it's some kind of control mechanism.
Absolutely.
To keep people in line.
It's man-made. I mean, this is a man-made construct. So I mean, it wouldn't doubt it doesn't. There's no doubt about it in my mind.
Alex, Justin, would you contend what he's saying, or do you agree?
I tend to agree, but I would like to pose a theory. What
Mm-hmm.
happens if you know how we can basically make our own destiny here? We can either look on the positive side of life or the negative side of life, and depending on how our outlook is, determines whether we live either in hell on earth or on heaven on earth. What if the next step is exactly the same way? Depending on your outlook, depending on how you view how
Yeah.
you live your life, your next life will be either a heaven or a hell, not necessarily distinct from each other, but the same place. It's just hell because for some reason you thought you were a bad person, or heaven if you thought you were a pious person, for example.
I see Justin nodding along there. Do you have
Yeah.
a comment for that, Justin?
I mean, I think that those are most definitely components of it because obviously we don't really know, and we I think get glimpses of it when we sleep, glimpses of it when we get put under, glimpses of it for any of those quick reactions to anxiety and stuff like that of what it could be, but for the most part, the basics of everything, there's always going to be a form of going from one point to another. A transition is what we're talking about, even in the material form. But what does your body do? You don't. Your body doesn't go to a heaven or hell. It goes back to the ground, to the material. It gets broken up into tinier particles, tinier pieces, and gets transformed into the earth, which goes back into the earth. So I think consciously, because that happens to our body, so the body's going nowhere, but consciously, there is a possibility that same thing happens, or part of it gets transversed into what other pockets that may be out there. And I think that would be the closest explanation because people who have experienced certain things of quick deaths, coming back from a death from whatever reason, will say that they were talking to someone. It seems like we go somewhere. Something goes somewhere. You know, is it really a Christian heaven and hell, or is it Nirvana or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that? I think those are aspects of what's going on there because we see it physically. For every reaction, there's an equal but opposite. Well, for every action, there's an equal but opposite reaction. So if we just apply that, then we would know that what happens to us physically, to some extent, what happens to us on such a conscious level, and that is dissipating back into the universe to be used, for whatever parts. But I do feel that there's a certain aspect to it of creating our own personal heaven and hells, and we have many, different literature and materials and even religious beliefs that kind of obviously, tap into that idea. And I think part of it is it is all about our belief. It's all about our mind frame. There are cultures that are primitive. They don't even believe in heaven and hell or gods or
Mm-hmm.
anything. Although there's cultures that are primitive who believe in such things. And so it comes from somewhere, and part of it is a form of control, and the majority of it is just our trying to understand those particular things.
Right.
And I think the closest we're at is where we're at right now. But there's a huge part that clouds it, and that's really the religious cult like aspect to these things, and we shouldn't fear them. When we're looking into these, we should apply some of those ideas because that when you look at all these beliefs, they're very similar. They have very basic commandments, if you want to call them conditions, for such things. And really, in the end, it's basically a reaction, almost like a karmic type of thing. Do unto others as you would be done to yourself.
Yeah.
These types of things exist through them all, and you can apply them to everything, which is why religion wins a lot of times because you can easily apply these allegories and stories and fables and whatnot. But at the same time, there's some truth based into those things, and I think that's where we do get lost within the discussion of not necessarily heaven out, but like this, the afterlife discussion, because we should be open to those ideas, and maybe we just come right back to here, which is a total possibility. It would explain certain things, like past lives, which I feel that's more of a genetic thing, but It would explain certain things like that, or how people can get certain histories mixed up with their own history, or overall that we dissipate right back into the universe, and certain personality traits from, what was it, the little boy who had visions of a pilot crashing.
Oh yeah,
It's a totally
reincarnation. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah. At first when I read those things, when I was more into like a atheistic perspective, I cast them out. But knowing that there's a possibility, knowing that we have enough data that suggests, and I shouldn't say data scientifically, but enough people's experience to know that something gets triggered after that point, from for the brief period that we may experience it or not. Excuse me.
This is interesting right here. I mean, I'm very interested what Justin said in regard to you make your own heaven or hell, and this is very applicable to life as it is, right? When you wake up in the morning, if in your head you're like, today I'm going to have a great day, it's going to be awesome. It probably will be. Whereas if you wake up like, oh, woe is me, my life sucks, I hate this, you're going to have a shitty day. It's not.
That's me every morning.
It's not going to be a good day, but it could that be the same thing in regard to the afterlife? Is your perspective on reality? If you perceive it to be very positive, then that's what it's going to be. Let me ask everyone on the show tonight. Does everyone here have an opinion that points in the direction that when you do die, something comes after? Or is there anybody that's like, nope, that's it. When you're dead,
No.
you're dead, you're dead.
I'm indifferent.
All right. In which way? Let's go to Alex. What tell me more about that.
I'm indifferent only because I'm not 100% certain either way. So much like my religious beliefs, I'm agnostic towards that. I neither believe or disbelieve until I actually experience it. And if I do move on, I'll come back to haunt you guys to tell you there's an afterlife. So don't worry. I'll take care of that for you guys.
Remember, Houdini actually said he would do that.
And yet is yet to appear. I think a lot of it has to do with hope too, right? I mean, people don't want to think that there's nothing but black, an end.
If it's oblivion, it's not even black. It's nothing.
But I mean, nothing. That's what I mean. Nothing. Absolutely nothing around you. Nothing. But I mean, when you think, when you constantly have hope, it brings people to believe that there is something after the fact. And of course, you got to credit religion for most of that, obviously, because they've painted that picture. And through history, we have adopted it on most of us. Not so much now as opposed to before. It seems to be dwindling a little bit now, but I mean, years ago, obviously, it was a solid thing. It was a daily. People lived by the sword and died by the sword. When it came to religion, their day-to-day life, the way they brought up their families, the supper, your prayers around the table, everything was had a religious trademark stamp to it.
Right.
Now, not so much, right? And the same with death. Death was no different.
Yeah.
You constantly hear they're off. They're off to the other world. They're off to heaven, or they're waiting for you to join them when it's your time. All this terminology is thrown around, and yet nobody knows. Nobody.
No.
That's very true. I mean, nobody has answers. Nobody knows, right? Anybody that tells you they I know what happened, they're either mental or they're lying to you, right? Because there's nobody that truly knows. Now there's lots of people that believe. You can believe in but belief and knowing are different things, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Absolutely. I mean, either look at it's I lost my train of thought here, but
That's okay. It'll come back.
yeah, it'll come back. It'll
come
run
back.
back to me. Yeah. No, it's we would love to know. It's obviously a thing that can't be proven or disproven, even with science. I mean, science is making headways, but they can, keep making headways. But I mean, really, are we ever going to know the truth?
I don't
Other
know,
than
man.
when our time
Not
comes
exactly.
ourselves, that is when the truth is revealed.
Yeah.
I really doubt it. There was a movie that came out like maybe a year or two ago on Netflix. I forget the name of it, but it was, Robert Redford was in it, and it was a Netflix exclusive movie. And it was set in the future where science had proved, without a shadow of a doubt, that the afterlife existed. There was no, well, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. It was 100% that when you died, you moved on to somewhere else. 100% proof. No speculation, no question marks. It was for real. And it altered society in such a way because people were literally killing themselves.
And that's what will happen when we know the truth. I mean, our life will change forever once that's been proven or disproven or whatever. And yeah, you pretty much will probably see stuff like that happening.
Well, I mean, we can go even further because really this is nothing. It's really what's happening in between all of this, that's really giving us life. So, I mean, I believe there will be even a point, like as we talk in sci-fi, science fiction, transferring our consciousness. And that's why I kind of believe that that the current consciousness can transfer over to something else. Not necessarily karmic, but that maybe we go and we live in the watered world. Maybe we live in water world with Kevin Costner.
What? No.
When we die.
Come on. What
Disaster.
are you, Kevin Costner? Are you kidding
That's like
me?
the Titanic.
Why not Kevin Costner in Field of Dreams? Why Waterworld? What's wrong? What do you mean?
It's more adventurous. I don't want to go Field of Dreams to Waterworld. I'd rather go there at least. Both great movies. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a total possibility for that, and we even see. Although I think there's a lot more understanding or data that's saying that what we're seeing paranormal wise is possibly like an imprint upon the universe. So in that idea is that it's saved somewhere. You know what I'm saying? This whole thing is saved somewhere. We have physical hard drives, and I believe there's a metaphysical hard drive happening, and that's something that's happening there. And that could be also explained why, in the sense that we create our own personal hell, because we get our own little Discord server when we die,
Well, I mean, you could look at it even simpler, Justin. You look at sound. The stuff that we're creating right now, it never dies. It just recycles. It's off into cyber.
Keeps traveling.
It's universal. It just keeps traveling. So I mean, does our energy do the same thing?
Yeah. I would say we keep traveling in that sense, traveling to the next breakthrough, whatever that is.
I
think Douglas Adams had it the best.
What do you do?
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
What do you mean, like?
We just keep hitchhiking.
Yeah.
42. Justin just mentioned the P word. Are we going to go there? You know what I'm talking about, right?
I mean, you know what? Because it's important. Because I mean, look at
paranormal.
The paranormal.
It basically conducts the way people investigate the paranormal.
Of course, yeah, and that is true because we see already these linear thoughts, these linear perspectives, and applying it to something that we don't know. We see it a lot. We have people saying, "Oh, this ghost is this from 1942," and so on. And luckily, if you're involved in this enough, that you can keep that, and still understand there might be a possibility of another reason why that's happening. But that information is still valid to an extent. But yeah, people will see it. And I mentioned this once before where I've met intuitives. I don't even want to call people psychic or anything. I think intuitive is a better word to explain those things. I've heard intuitives. I've worked with others who will say what they saw was information. It's not the spirit of your grandma It's information that they're picking up from the environment. So, and it's a very small, I don't even think some of those people are operating as they used to, but it was a very small group of people that would do that, while everyone else is, oh, your grandmother's standing over here, and, you know, here's Uncle Paul coming through right now. And if they are, I think this would be a better explanation on it than
I'm interested in what
being
you just
that
said,
way.
what you just said, Justin, as far as them
Go ahead.
seeing information.
Mhm.
Yes.
Can you
Yes.
elaborate that on because I mean the only experience I've had with mediums is reading books about them and
Yeah.
and seeing them on TV.
Of course.
I've never had a physical interaction with a medium, you know, like as far as talking to them about
Yes.
what they do. And the feeling I have is that most of them, not all, but the vast
Yes.
majority are con men.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
charlatans.
But I do think,
delusional.
or no, delusional, but
Yeah.
I do think that there's a small percentage
Of course.
that are legitimately getting information from somewhere.
Mhm.
Now, what you said, which I found interesting, was that most of them, like you said, oh, there's your aunt is standing behind you and she's telling
Yeah.
you and all this stuff. Whereas you're saying is that, correct me if I'm wrong, is like there's like an information field
Yes.
that
yes.
that they're
yes.
kind of tapping into and grasping onto. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
We are, in that sense, psychically extracting files from a debug menu during that experience, and picking up these individual bits and pieces of memory, in a sense. You know, you had it. I do my best to listen to the podcast. Oh, and I believe this was a live stream. But you had oh my God, I can't believe I forget his name right
Reeves.
now.
Reeves.
He was talking about the stone tape.
The stone
theory.
tape. Yeah.
And not too long before that, we were talking about having experience. Well, at least I brought it up, having experiences in basements and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he was even explaining here that older houses were built with certain foundations and so on, or even older than that, they were using different types of stones. And then they shot electricity through those foundations, right?
Yes.
Check that episode out if you haven't seen it or listened to it. But now we take that idea and we have electric around us,
Mm-hmm.
charging up areas, and it takes that's picking things up on a physical auditory level. But then you have us who come in here with our own satellite, and we start picking up on that resonance. And so the idea of what I'm saying, picking up information, is like literally imprinted psychic data that's within
everything.
This. Yes. And another reason why I even came up with that was I think I even brought it up before. I was watching an episode of Sightings, I believe.
Sightings.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm Tim White. Welcome to Sightings.
And that music, I love that intro.
Yeah.
But there was an episode, and if it wasn't this, forgive me if anyone who knows and what I'm talking about. There was a man who got out of jail. I want to say he was in Alcatraz. I believe this was a Sightings episode. He was in Alcatraz at some point,
Mm-hmm.
and he wanted to come back and talk about his experiences there, because he mentioned how he experienced ghosts there. But when the lady was with him interviewing, and this lady, psychic lady, she started picking up images from his past. Now, most things that we attune to that is usually something that already has passed over, okay? And very rarely will you hear psychics talk about something you're doing in the now or present future, whatever that may be, 10 years, while you're alive. She was picking up him being depressed. There's a really depressed man. He's standing here by the door.
She was picking up the guy that was there who was alive.
Yes.
She was picking up
correct.
things from him.
Yes.
While he was still alive.
Yes, seeing images, and then there was another point I was trying to get to. They don't visually see it, but they see it in their mind's eye, in a sense, So it's not necessarily happening here. And on the note for at least scientific evidence, it was an article that I lost a while ago, and we have legitimate parapsychological studies in certain universities. We do have valid information that at least 10% of the people that they've tested in this particular study for psychic experiences, 10%, I think it was out of 100. So 10 of them had psychic, at least correlated with the test that they were taking. And another 10% of that they felt were valid as in scoring higher, getting 4 more answers compared to the other ones, which was a little weird.
Is this like, from what you're describing, I'm getting images of like the Matrix, like the Matrix coming down all over.
You might be psychic.
No,
but that is what that is in a sense what it is, because we have to take a look at, as we explained earlier, Steve brought it up, the waves, the frequency. This bouncing off my head right now, everyone gets to see.
Yeah.
That's just light frequency bouncing off these particles. It's not
just radiation.
Yeah. and hopefully not giving me cancer right now. But yeah, these things are happening on a different scale than we understand it, and we are existing on a different scale than we understand it.
So what you're saying,
science alone does know, and there is a possibility that we are literally recording things within this realm.
Right. It sounds like, from what you're saying, it sounds a lot like virtual reality, like we're not
holographic theory,
a holographic universe, right?
Yeah,
let me shoot over to Alex and Steve. Let me go to Alex first. Alex, what's your take on the holographic simulation theory, and how would that relate to life after death?
I don't personally believe it.
You don't believe it? What do you think about it, though? I mean, it's fine. It's fine if you don't think it's real, but I mean, or you don't give it any credence. Not thinking it's real. That's the wrong thing to say it. But you don't give it any credence. But why not? And what do you think?
I just think that we're trying as a society to come up with so many possible different answers that we can to try to justify our existence. That's my take on it. And sometimes the simplest answer is the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
We're here in the physical. Whether we move on or not is not entirely certain. It's up for debate.
Yep.
But if we try to overcomplicate things, then what ends up happening is that we just frustrate ourselves even more.
True. That is true.
It's one thing to speculate.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's free to speculate and form their own opinions, of course, but that's just what it is. You know what I mean? And I don't lend too much credence on a lot of speculation unless it can be proven. And like I said, even with religion, it's like I said, I'm agnostic, so I need proof to believe one way or the other whether it is true or not. Same thing with all of these theories that come out regarding the holographic universe, regarding whatever the case may be. It needs to be proven to me personally that is the case in order for me to believe it.
How about you, Steve? What's your take on holographic theory and how it relates to life after death?
I would love to live in a world like Tron. I'm like Alex. I think I agree with what Alex said. I think the simplest answers are usually the best. We romanticize what we'd like to think the afterlife would be like. And again, I hate, sort of reiterating with religion and how it's painted that picture on what it might be like, having this beautiful paradise, if you will. And I'm sure we'd all love to believe that there's a paradise waiting for us after this. But let me ask you this:
my virgins?
Yeah, exactly. But who's to say we aren't already in the afterlife?
You've brought up something there, Steve, which I was hoping to bring up later, but you're absolutely correct. We might be.
This, for all we know, this could be purgatory. We don't know. And yeah, but I mean, look at. And this is what Justin got into the paranormal side of things when it comes to the afterlife, if you will. And that's the problem I have with a lot of people who look at the afterlife through a paranormal sort of standpoint. It's linear. It's trapped in a box, and the only way I think we're ever going to sort of explain anything is to step outside that box and be bold. And by saying that, I mean, we got to look at all avenues when it comes to all theories, if you will, when it comes to looking at the afterlife. I mean, are we the afterlife being one of them?
That's making it complicated.
Well, you know what? It is a complicated thing. I mean, realistically, if it wasn't complicated, we'd have all the answers here.
I agree, because there's a certain...
There's a good way, because all we remember is this reality.
Mm-hmm.
We automatically think or assume that this is the starting point. That this is base reality. This is the ground level of perception, and that we go on from here, right? If in fact we do go on, there's no way of knowing, but if we go on to another level of consciousness, another level of reality. But what if this might be reality level 50 or 1000 or 10, and
I had a bunch of resets and saves.
Multiple levels below that
quarters to start over,
that we just don't remember or that are unaware of, right?
Yeah,
this is where past life regression will come in handy.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting, Alex. What do you?
But even that.
What do you think about?
How do you know if that's even a reality? I mean, I'd like to believe that's a reality, but I don't know. I don't entirely believe past life regression.
Well, there's this surprisingly amount of evidence for reincarnation and the like, where especially with children. Well, I think children are the only ones that you can actually validly look at with any sense. If you're 35 and you're saying, yeah, I used to be, and it's like, get out of here. You know what I mean?
Children have all the fun when it comes to this, to the paranormal world, if you will.
Yeah, because they're so they're just starting, right? They're so young because they don't know. When you meet a child that talks beyond his age or her age, you're like, whoa, because you're taken aback. How do you know that? You shouldn't know that. You're a kid. How do you know that, right? What do you think, Justin?
Well, I mean, on that subject, on one note, on taking things simple. Usually, sometimes that is the best route, but in a sense, the simplest route is taking the information that we have. But as we've known, germs is really probably 150 years old, 200 years old when we actually said, "Hey, germs exist," and they believed that it was demons and other things that were causing these things. And little did we know, we even had scientists dying because they believe microbiology, basically, and that was just 200 years ago. So we really don't know, but on the idea of children, everything that we said would somewhat validate that, because the child would be a new form, correct? And I mean, who knows how we get to that? Like, who knows how we generate sperm, and that sperm has consciousness in it to grow into, because that's what it is. I mean, within all of us here, we have the million possibilities of a form of consciousness just sitting in us, waiting to pop out. But we don't even know how that even comes about. And that's, if you're not regularly depleting that, it's regenerating. Dude, and that's coming from...
That sounds alien.
Sounds gross. Can you stop with that,
That
please?
sounds alien-like, man.
Can you stop?
Gareth, you're gonna have to rate this show triple X.
It's coming from somewhere. That light.
The light. What Justin is saying, the life
comes from
the life energy is coming from there, right? But but not necessarily consciousness.
Not when and of course, we don't know. It could be though. It could be.
It could be.
Could be set that we have consciousness set into every little single cell organism within our body.
Yeah.
And
what
it's
if
out.
What if the physical body, when it's being manufactured inside the womb, it's a little bit like when we're manufacturing an AM radio. And,
Sure,
and
yeah.
we're building it and we're putting it together, and okay, here's the final radio, but the thing that's going to generate the sound is a signal that comes through the air.
Yeah.
So what if
That's,
the biological body is created, but the source of what we are, the consciousness, the personality, all that stuff, is from someplace else, right?
It's called frequency.
If it's
called frequency.
If it's a frequency, if it's a transmission from somewhere else,
it is
that our bodies are just picking up and hosting.
But Garrett, think about it. Frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily a transmission, but all around us, we are surrounded by frequencies.
Yep.
An unseen force. It's energy, and I think it was what Tesla was the first to actually go, look we can tap into this and create free energy, right? And he was right. And but I mean, when we look at it from the metaphysical sort of standpoint, if you will, and science will say, well, pseudoscience. But is it really pseudoscience? Is it? I don't know. I beg to differ. I really do believe that we could learn a lot from the metaphysical world. I really do.
Yeah.
And when it comes to frequencies and how they interact with the body, and Justin, with the whole thing about the creation of a baby, for instance, a new life. Think about all the frequencies that go into that, all the energy that goes into the creation of that newborn baby.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of energy going.
It's hard to deny that there's, not that going on. It really is.
Well, I would say you start off with the consciousness for whatever, however we get to that point. That's what it is. I think anything that is a alive, single cell organism has a consciousness.
I would agree.
Awareness.
I would agree.
Of that is what we're talking about, the awareness of that.
Mm-hmm.
But if we were to take the idea that when we die, that goes somewhere, this doesn't have to go somewhere. I'm not saying the physical self, but like our persona, you know what I'm saying? Because that's what we're really talking about, this thing that we think is us, really, in the end, all we really even are, even if we were just some weird form of consciousness, it's just a mix of molecules and particles, whatever particles those could be. It could even be light particles for all we know, because that's the closest to everything that's coming to a light and electromagnetic is what's almost functioning the universe. So we could be a collection of that coming from wherever, from another part of the universe, another part of a multiverse, and as someone dies, that just comes back goes back into life again. Yeah. We don't necessarily even have to have that afterlife. It just goes right into that. And maybe the afterlife is just the memories.
What was that?
And that would what you would call it? That would suggest that there's a possibility of that past life regression and stuff like that, because it is. We have DNA memory now.
What do you guys think of the? I'm sure you've heard this before. I don't know where I've heard it, but it's probably some famous quote where it said that I was a butterfly that dreamt he was a man and loved it. And then one day I woke up when I was a butterfly again. It's if it was some other creature that's having a dream that it's Justin Villarreal, and one day that creature will, you'll wake up from the dream, and you Justin will cease to exist. I'll keep going. I'll be fine. But you will cease to exist. Because you're something else, dreaming that you're you.
I mean, it's totally where the things get sketchy is how it's happening on a subatomic level, because we have almost visual representation of psychic experiences by the tests we're getting of brain function and all, and that's how we're going to be able to deal with having helmets that can do everything for us in a sense, because it's going to collect that brain, all that frequency that we're generating, and when we're changing different thoughts, from different hertzes and whatnot. We're changing our frequency. When we're sleeping, we're in alpha, beta. I shouldn't say that when we're sleeping. We have alpha, beta, gamma. And we have all sorts of rays that are going on while we're in that particular state of mind. So what's to say that that doesn't transcend in some other form or whatever that we can collect anymore? And, we have we have this data. We have it already. So it already alludes to these types of things in the first place. Spooky
stuff. let me ask all you guys, because I'm in the minority here in regard to going out and actually physically seeking out the paranormal, where I know you three guys have done this on many occasions. I know Justin and Steve also. You've told me stories where you two are like maniacs. Is Frankie right there? Where you would go out on your own, in the middle of the night and be driving. Okay, let's stop over here. Let's see what's going on. I mean, for me, that's crazy. I'd be terrified. But you guys have done that, and you've gone out,
yes,
and you've gone out and seeked out these things, and you've experienced things also.
Yeah.
And I want to touch on how the paranormal plays into the belief in the afterlife. Because from my perspective, were it not for the paranormal, were it not for things, very strange phenomena occurring, I would strongly be in line with the school of thought where when you die, you die. That's it. You're just an animal.
Yeah.
You're just an animal that through, millions of years of evolution has somehow achieved some form of consciousness. And when you get old or you get hit by a bus or whatever, your body dies, and that's the end of that. It's game over. But then
key word is somehow.
But then
somehow
along comes paranormal phenomena, which in a strict materialistic view should not happen. But it does. What are your thoughts, Steve?
The paranormal. Oh God! It's. I don't know where does one start with this? I mean, it's such a huge.
It is a huge topic, for sure.
It's a huge topic.
Yeah.
And what personally?
Where? How does the paranormal? How does the paranormal play into the belief and or thought process that there is some kind of consciousness survival after physical death?
Well, I mean, if you look at how people investigate the paranormal and how they've investigated the paranormal for years, and it's really hasn't changed much, and based on religious, depending on where it is, we'll just say here in North America, whatever. Our search is based on religious folklore. Folklore. Religious.
Almost,
I mean,
mythos.
What is it? Is it the Old Testament that states the word ghost in it? What is it, the Old Testament or is it the New Testament?
Was it the Holy Ghost, right?
The Holy Ghost.
The Holy Ghost.
And for years, like I said earlier, people have followed that method, that formula, if you will, in trying to, answer that question.
Yeah.
And they've gotten nowhere. They haven't gotten anywhere. I mean, it's the same old story, time in and time again. It hasn't changed. And when it comes to, personally, I have a problem with that because when I look at the paranormal, I try not to look at it like that. I think you really have to think outside the box, and in your approach, you have to set that aside and think, no, that possibly the answer is something else and not the afterlife.
Yeah. But I agree with you, Steve. I think you're right. But don't you find that most people who, open quotes, ghost hunters or people that are involved in paranormal research naturally go to that place where, well, the person that lived in this house died in that chair, and there's a cold spot in that area, therefore It's the
Yeah,
spirit of the person that died. They make all these connections that are not necessarily there, but they make them anyway.
You know what? And that's the problem. Well, in this day and age with the internet and their TV shows and stuff like that, yeah, more so than ever. But yeah, people will seek out these areas, these locations, if you will, because they know a story. They've heard a story about that location. And so they automatically assume that is what they're going to look for. Whereas if a person finds a location and simply, puts his, mind and say, look, I want to see if I can find something here. And all of a sudden you get all this weird information, but you've never heard or seen anything about it. Then what? That, to me, that is more intriguing. I don't know about you, Justin, but that, there's been so many locations that I've been to where that's been the case. I don't know anything about the history of this place, but yet something has come forward and presented itself, and bang, okay, I want to know more about this.
Yeah. I've ran into a few places like that,
Yeah.
just randomly come upon stuff. Or even some synchronicity where I'm going through some forum and some little like, oh, this road, someone mentioned something, and it's like the only time that was mentioned, and I'm like, I'm going down that road. I'm gonna go find that place. Forget the local cemetery that everyone's been at or whatnot. We need to find out what's up about this. But I mean, overall though, it does. We're stagnant in the paranormal field. Most of our technology is almost the same from almost 100 years ago when we're looking at it. And some of that we used to use, with the lights and I forget the name of those boxes, but they would set them up and have a psychic try to do something inside the box to set the light off, stuff like that. We don't implement that stuff anymore, because at some point it became a seller to pick that up. Even if you research this stuff enough, all the stories that we've all read and heard, the majority of them, they're false.
Yeah.
They're false. The Fox sisters, one of the biggest stories I ever heard of, is a false story. And for years, these girls, were doing what they were doing. To point out even Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and oh my God, and
Conan Doyle was one of the main expose. He would go and try and expose them, and
but he wasn't. He ended up into that because he believed.
No, he genuinely wanted to believe. He wanted it to be real, and he kept getting disappointed. He would keep running into fakes constantly.
And that's how that's how my base came into that, and that's why it's changed so much, because once you're involved in this enough to read people, to see what's going on and whatnot, you kind of get discouraged from certain. Not saying all cases are invalid, fake, or anything like that, but a good majority of them are based in some other realm. And I'm not saying like a spiritual realm. It's coming from somewhere else, and we spoke enough actually on both the shows about trauma is a big part of paranormal experiences. So and that is part of everything else that we believe. You could be traumatized, and in a sense where you believe demons are going to be coming after you because of the things that you believe. I, for a period of time, because I was so involved in the church at a young age, I used to believe, again, angels and they're around us and they're doing this. It could cause a lot of mental damage for different reasons. If you read those types of things and look into it, you have to look at them both as a literal and figurative type of thing. You can't take it too literal or you can't take it too figurative. And that's a lot of point. That's something I'd never done earlier, but still a lot of that was based around what I was experiencing, looking at and looking for. And it wasn't until after that and literally breaking away that helped me to even look at the paranormal and say it's not even the paranormal. These are some anomalies, because it's normal. I mean, the what's weird is all of this is flickering. It's a flickery. This is whatchamacallit, like a TV station. Okay, so all of our particles are literally beating so fast. That's where the frequency comes from. That's where we start getting frequency. They're
It's
vibrating so
vibration,
fast.
yeah.
That's literally what all this is. And that's where things started changing for me, because it's like, okay, well, if this is not necessarily physical and we're trying to apply physical understandings to something that's technically metaphysical, that's not going to work. So we have to look at things at a totally different level. And that, if anything, what we see and where the paranormal overall has to evolve from is get out of this primitive religious standpoint to it.
Let me ask you guys, the assumption that spirits and ghosts and paranormal phenomena are in fact the dead that have come back to communicate with us or haunt us or to torment us or whatever the case may be. What are your thoughts? And I want to go to Alex on this one. What are your thoughts in regard to communicating with these open quotes entities, close quotes, or whatever it is? Is it possible to communicate with them? And if so, what are we communicating with?
Well, that's the big question. I mean, I've tried communicating. Told the story before on our show, but I've used the Ouija board many times to try to communicate with whomever was on the other side. The problem is that there's no real way of validating who you're actually talking to,
or what,
unless you're,
or what.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I've been wanting to do a Ouija board session as of late, now that both my parents have passed away, because if I'm able to contact them, I would know whether they would be legitimate or not.
You'd be able to.
Now, but even
you'd be able to ask certain questions that only you would know the answer to.
Correct.
Right.
Now, that being said, I know a lot of the theory behind the Ouija board is that you subconsciously move the planchette around to basically where you want it to go. So the only real way for me to verify that is to get two other people to play it while I ask the questions. Right. And even then, this is where it gets tricky, because if you're dealing with the spirit realm, or you're dealing with whatever you're dealing with, whether it's an evil entity or demonic or angelic or whatever you want to call it, they could easily know the answers to the questions you're asking. So that still doesn't really validate anything, really.
Well, but, no, I disagree. It validates that you're communicating with something, because let's put it this way. Let's say you have three guys on a Ouija board, and you're not taking part, but you're standing there, maybe asking the questions.
This sounds like an X-rated type of scene.
and you ask specific questions that only you know the answer to.
Yeah.
And if you're asking these questions and they are supplying you with the answers that there's no way they could know. Then it kind of validates that there is some kind of... Now, we don't know what they're communicating with, but there is some kind of communication going on.
Of course, there's communication. I mean, the point I was trying to make is that I don't know whether the entity I'm talking to is actually either my father or my mother.
Right.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the communication aspect of it, I've done it multiple times with the Ouija board, and I don't dispute the fact that we're communicating with something.
Right.
What that something is,
you don't know,
is up to debate.
Have you ever done it, Alex, and received responses to your questions that only you would know the answer to, and the answers were correct?
Well, that would have to mean that I would not be playing, because, like I said, it could be a subconscious thing as well.
Yeah. It's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
So, the one story that I think I told on our show when you were on, Gareth, I can't remember exactly if you were on it, is when I was a teenager and we played the Ouija board in the cemetery on top of a grave. And it was myself and two other people. I played with the so-called skeptic of the group, while the other guy kept an eye out for the guard. We started playing, and as the planchette started moving, now this is what I typically do, play with someone who's skeptical, is I'll take my hands off at any given time just to prove that I'm not pushing it. And when I lifted my hands, the guy playing with me also lifted his hand, and the planchette still kept moving.
Oh wow!
So there's there's things in this world that I believe wholeheartedly.
Mm-hmm.
There's things in this world that we don't fully understand. What those things are, how they work, what they're coming from. That's again something that still needs to be determined.
I can see how that would be reality changing and a little bit terrifying too, considering you're in a graveyard and
Yeah.
you're experiencing that. But to see the planchette move on its own, whether at home in a graveyard, wherever, that's definitely something that's going to alter your worldview. It's going to change your perspective.
I'm a stubborn Italian. It takes a long time for me to get it through my head. You know what I mean?
Brings up an interesting thing, though. What do you guys think about communicating with whatever these things are? They might be the souls of the dead. They might not be. We simply don't know. But there seems to be a lot of evidence where we are in fact communicating with something other than ourselves. We just don't know what it is. Do you think that there are like the spirit box? You know that thing that scans thousands of radio frequencies all very, very quickly, and you'll pick up voices. What do you guys think of? What do you guys think of that kind of technology, the spirit box? Do you think that's a valid form of communication, or is just
parlor trick?
Okay, let's go to Steve. Tell us more, Steve.
It's a parlor trick. I've never been a big fan of the ghost box or anything like that, spirit box. Stray radio waves and formulating words from different feeds. I honestly have never been a big proponent of the spirit box. There are so many toys and trinkets when it comes to the paranormal, and there have been for many, many years, hundreds of years. And this is just an update. I'd love to believe that it works, but I've used several different types, and not once have I ever been believed anything that has ever come out of it. Nothing.
So I have it's a secondhand story, but I have a kind of a story with the spirit box, because I also was on the same path as you, Steve. I believed the same thing. I was like, these things are just scanning thousands of frequencies. You're going to pick up stray radio signals from here, there, wherever, and then your mind is going to kind of put it together and make a word or a sentence, and it's all a bunch of nonsense. And then I had a conversation with Matthew Williams, who's been on the Mindset Podcast many times. He has a YouTube channel called The Secret Vault, where he's an urban explorer, and he goes into underground bases, like abandoned military underground bases. He finds them, and we can hear Justin eating, by the way.
Sorry,
yeah, you can hear. Well, I gotta ask you now, Justin. What are you eating?
Please.
Did you bring enough for the class? No,
I think there might be enough. Sorry. I had the cat here, and she was moving, and I was trying to move the bag away.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So where was I? My train of thought. Oh yeah, so he was he finds these underground military bases, which are like literally like a mile or so underground that's disused. And he finds like this little way in, and he climbs through this little opening, and he goes through a tunnel, and then it opens up, and he's in this base. And he told me a story once, because occasionally when he goes into these locations that have been abandoned for 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, like from World War II, and he goes in there, and he'll occasionally do some ghost, EVPs and stuff like that. And one time, him and a buddy found this underground base, way underground, and he had the ghost box, the that thing that scans the frequencies. And because he's so far underground and surrounded by solid rock, it's almost impossible. I wouldn't say completely impossible, but pretty much impossible that radio signals get down that far. And he turned on the ghost box and he started talking to it, and he got some responses. And it was responses that he he literally cannot explain because there are no radio signals in that area.
Well, that necessarily doesn't mean it's the box. It's the box itself.
Uh-huh.
That could be something perhaps slaving the box.
What do you mean by
That's
slaving?
a totally different sort of scenario where a ghost box, when you're using it on a regular sort of basis, it strays radio waves, signals. Now, if there is something in that particular bunker area, whatever else, it wouldn't have to rely on picking up radio waves or anything like that. It would actually use the energy from the box to try to communicate. Then that's a different scenario, right? It's not using radio waves. It's actually using the box itself.
True. Yeah.
Right. I don't see that. Okay, I can sort of look. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But for the most part, when you listen to the stuff that people put out there when they're using these ghost box, spirit boxes, Frank boxes, whatever else, it's I hate to say it, and I've taken a lot of flack for it, but garbage. I've never been a fan of it. Like I said, I've used them several times, and bang, it's always the same scenario. But yeah, it's. Think of that ghost box that particular person had in that bunker as a digital recorder, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially what it's become. It's become a platform for something that might be there, able to communicate and using it, slaving it, and to use it to communicate what it wants to or needs to.
But
it's
from what I'm hearing though, Steve, is you're saying that the ghost box is a bunch of nonsense. You're just hearing radio frequencies that this thing is picking up, and your mind is stringing it together to make words or phrases, right?
Mm-hmm.
I get that, and I'm inclined to agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're in a location where there are no radio frequencies, there's nothing. You're deep underground, surrounded by rock. There are zero radio frequencies. And you turn this thing on, and you start getting responses to your questions.
The box is emitting energy, right? It's emitting.
But it's receiving. It's
receiving, but it's an electrical device.
Mm-hmm.
So it's emitting electricity, right? It's got power.
Yep.
So then, without the frequencies that it's receiving something that might be there present, using it, slaving the box to communicate, rather than using frequencies.
So are you saying that the voices that he's getting through he is communicating with some kind of discarnate entity or something?
Quite possibly, yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
In that scenario, I would tend to believe that you might have something, yes.
Okay.
But like I said, for the most part, 99% of the time, when you use those boxes and the stray radio waves formulating words and all that, honestly, to me it's like pareidolia.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree.
Yeah.
Is anyone else, Steve, Justin? Steve. Alex, Justin. Did you have something you want to add to that?
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say I would agree with what Steve is saying. I mean, when you're in an environment that's absent of all other frequencies, it's almost going to be picking up whatever's there.
Yeah.
Right. The problem is when you use the spirit box or whatever you want to call it out in the outside world, for lack of a better term, there's just too much disturbance from the radio waves to be able to formulate any sort of legitimate communication with whoever or whomever might be there.
So are you saying, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I might be completely wrong. Please correct me. But are you saying that in regular world, when you use these things, you're wasting your time? But
yes.
But if you're in an area or a vicinity where there is no radio waves, there's no chance of interference, then all of a sudden this device becomes a legitimate communication device with whatever.
it could potentially become a communication. There's no guarantee it'll work in every scenario.
Right.
Just like everything else.
See, Gareth, what you have to take into mind into play here is the fact that the person that brings this spirit box into play automatically has the mindset that this box will pick something up and formulate words from stray radio voices.
Right.
And their mind is set on listening to these, formulate if something's being formulated. So, like I said, it's like when you look in the sky and you see an elephant in the cloud. It's like that audibly.
Right.
It's the same sort of scenario. But when the scenario is different, such as your friend's situation where there are no stray radio signals, and you're listening to nothing, and it picks something up, then yes, then it becomes a possibility.
Right. I got you. Justin, I saw you nodding away there in between munches.
Yeah. I wish I had more.
You have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think it's. I'm more aligned with Alex and Steve that it would have to be in somewhat of a vacuum to really test it, and it's a total possibility given where Matthew was at that it kind of was a slight vacuum for that. But we discussed a lot of things already that could possibly be picking it up. And sure, it could be spirits, but we just, discussed stone tape theory. We discussed the multiverse. We discussed holographic theory, and there's a total and even memory. Not just stone tape. That there's at least some universal memory. So it's a total possibility that the spirit box, which the spirit box and many of these other what they call them RTC mission.
ITC.
ITC.
What does ITC stand for?
It's an outfit that have done.
That's the manufacturer of it,
No, that's a society. Are you talking about the society ITC?
Yeah, as in what they have built different boxes. So we have the boxes that go through channels, and there's literally boxes that are almost like white. Not that the channels are generating.
Right, just it's white noise, a white noise generator.
And it's picking up, whatever audio comes through there, and it's totally possible that we are picking those things up. But it could be, let's say, interference from geothermal radiation, electromagnetic radiation, that maybe one causing those issues, and two, that there's a possibility that it's charging those particular experiences. So that's the way I see those boxes work. And also, a lot of times we project things in a sense, again, we're receiving information, we're receiving frequency, but we also are putting that out there. You think negative, you're going to have a negative experience. We could see that we're on that line with all of our research that we're literally, it's either we're doing it or it's coming from something. So there's a possibility from Ouija boards to pendulums to spirit boxes that all we're doing is using that as a medium, literally a medium for something that we're already innately to do.
I never thought I'd see the day when I'd have 3 ghost hunters on the show, and they'd all explain away phenomena.
You know what? I mean, let's just be serious about this for a moment.
Sure.
You have to be skeptical with this. I mean, if you're not skeptical,
Yeah.
Well,
every sound, every sight is a ghost.
No, I agree completely.
I think the main thing that it is, we're looking at things, although you can see that we're somewhat, let's say, spiritual. We have an alternate understanding of the world. You need to really take a look at what is already there. If people say science can't explain it, science can explain a lot of things. Where we have theories of literally multiverses, yet we don't have a theory about ghosts specifically. We have theories of like the holographic universe that may explain away certain ideas. String theory, which probably be more to what might be going on here, but we don't have necessarily a theory on ghosts. And the best explanation is what just had. And most groups don't touch this type of stuff.
No.
They don't. I've spoken with, different groups. I've worked with different groups. There was a guy that I never worked with, but we communicated on and off, and I was actually supposed to do something. I think it was last year or the year before. But either way, when I brought up some stuff, when it started talking about theories and quantum theory, he goes, "Oh, you're one of those guys," and he's been in it longer than I have. He's been on TV shows. Not saying I could have, without getting too much into that, but he's actually been on TV shows and stuff like that. And he's like, you're one of those guys. And he's been in this for, at least another 10 years on top of what I've been doing, if not longer. And these are the type of people that are running a lot of, not saying what he's saying or suggests or pushes out through his group is bad, but that mind frame is what's apparent in the group. And we need to really explain this away, one way or another. Otherwise, we're going back to speculation again. And although we're still speculating, we at least have a real base to that speculation.
I think, to echo what Steve said, I think skepticism is very healthy in regard to this.
Yeah.
So we're rapidly approaching the end of our time together, but I want to leave it on one final question and or thought.
Ooh.
And most people. Most people don't even think about this stuff in depth. It's all very, very on the surface level based on their faith or their culture or whatever the case may be. But I think that most people want there to be an afterlife.
Of course.
They crave an afterlife.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm in the minority here where I kind of hope there isn't one.
You done some bad things, Gareth, that you don't want to pay for?
No, it's not.
You don't have to relive this hell that we've already
Exactly. It's like, can you imagine you get you move on to the afterlife, you die and you move on to this other reality. And you got to get another job. You got to work at the afterlife post office, or you got to work at the afterlife office, or you have to do more stuff. Do you know what I mean? There's more tasks that need to be accomplished in the afterlife, and you're like,
Gareth,
man, I want to get this behind me, right?
Just make sure it's an essential service.
Oh yeah, that's a great point, Alex. It's got to be an essential service. But do you see the point I'm making? Like, okay, now there's more stuff to do, right?
Yeah. Well, to piggyback off that, just for that second of the idea of doing more stuff, let's just take the idea that ghosts and demons and other things exist,
right,
and they're doing something. And even in this sense, let's say a ghost is understanding to transfer between these realms.
Right.
You literally have to say a ghost has super abilities then. If they're aware enough to do such things, this is why I don't totally believe in intelligent hauntings as much, because we haven't seen any of that. If a ghost was able to be like, yo, I'm here, and look, I'm going to move this mic, the one thing they do, that's another thing. You hear that?
Well, they do though. They do. There's multiple cases. It's like they in some way they are either they're aware of us, but we're not aware of them.
Maybe. But,
okay.
On the note to though, they would have to be in another realm.
Yeah.
To do that.
Yeah.
A demon would have to exist somewhere else, and if he does, I don't. In this case, I don't think you're spiritual in that matter. I think you're just able to go between those realms in that sense. You're physically somewhere then. Even if you're a consciousness and inhabiting a body to possess, you've already most likely possessed something else somewhere else.
Well,
you're inhabiting something
I've noticed that Steve is chomping at the bit here. He's got something to say. So let's shoot over to Steve.
I just wanted to say when Justin tapped his mic there, I did see a few orbs moving around.
I've seen multiple orbs in Justin's feed this evening.
I think he's woken up his spirits there. So.
Yeah.
We gotta light the incense, but we have to look at it in that physical sense, because if they do exist, that would explain a lot of those things. Like just to close that out real quick and get back on to your whole other point. a demon would have to clock into work, essentially. You know what I'm saying? Given and real quick, the demons that possess people are not even the demons that are in hierarchy. They're lower and lesser demons. So he's literally working for a boss somewhere, waiting for his man, clicking it in, saying, "All right, I took care of Joe today."
It's like a traffic cop that's got to fill his quota of tickets, right?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I need you to possess 10 people this week. Come on, what's the matter with you? Get to work. What's wrong
and
with
they
you?
send him off into like purgatory or the seventh layer of hell.
Okay,
whatever it is.
Okay, Mister. How many did you possess today? Okay, and did you get the little girl? Okay, very good. And you didn't fill your quota.
It's going off your bonus at the end of the quarter.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's madness.
That's when they come after you when they haven't filled the quota itself.
Yeah, it's crazy times. Well, guys, I think any final words before we move on? We shuffle off this this mortal coil and move away from this internet channel. Anybody? Bueller?
Well, I would say
be good.
Behave and be good. Be good. Be good.
I would say question everything, but be open to possibilities.
Yes.
And at least use something based in what we understand to at least apply to understand to other things. And I think that's the best you could take from a lot of what
I would agree.
About.
The mindset mantra has always been challenge your worldview and question your beliefs.
Yeah.
And don't wonder why. Well, why do I believe that? And start going down that path and see what you can figure out. All right, guys,
exactly.
we have reached the end of the Mindset Live Afterlife discussion. I want to go and talk to everyone to see where people that are viewing or watch this at a later date, where they can find you and find out how they can listen to more of your stuff and contact you. Let's start with Justin, and then we'll go down the list. Justin, where can people find your work?
You can find me here sometimes.
Sometimes,
as well as Nocturnal
yes.
Frequency. And the anonymousradionetwork.podbean.com. And of course, if you need to find any more info, Justin Villarreal on Facebook, or you can find my link tree, CrazyJ82.
There you go. Awesome. Alex, where can you be discovered on the interwebs?
Nowhere.
This is true.
Nowhere.
I'm the co-host of Nocturnal Frequency Radio along with Steve. You can find us on newvisionsradio.com. We're live every Sunday night, 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that would be 6 p.m. Euro time.
Yeah,
Garrett.
PST, Pacific Standard, yeah.
Aside from that, Facebook group. Obviously, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's www.facebook.com/Nocturnal Frequency Radio.
Yep.
Instagram, same thing. It's Nocturnal Frequency Radio, as well as Twitter.
There you go. Let's shoot over to Steve.
Twitter is at Dark Discussions.
Dark Discussions. So where can you be discovered, Steve?
Same place, man. www.newvisionsradio.com. The radio show is Nocturnal Frequency Radio. We've been broadcasting since 2008. And we've got some really, really cool Bigfoot stuff coming up in the next few weeks.
Boy,
awesome.
Yeah. Actually, I'll be releasing, I'm just finishing up the audio here, so I should be releasing my bit on the healthcare worker that's been dealing with COVID. So I'll catch that soon, too.
Awesome. Well, guys, I want to thank you all for coming on tonight. As always, it's always a pleasure to talk to you guys. Always a lot of fun.
Thank you.
When I'm fortunate enough to come on the show with you guys on Nocturnal, always have a blast. Great talking to you guys. Thank you so much for coming on. Hope the viewers have enjoyed our Afterlife discussion, and I've enjoyed it so much. I think we should do this again. What do you guys think?
I'm up for it.
I totally think we should do it again. You can find my stuff on mindsetcentral.com or also on this channel right here on the internet. Please subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up. Share. Hit the bell. All that stuff the kids tell you to do on these dopey channels. Go ahead and do it. We'd really appreciate it. But until next time, farewell, good brothers, and thanks for watching. Everyone wave. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye. Come on, Steve. Come on. There you go. All right. Okay. See you guys. Bye-bye. See ya.